I'll introduce myself. I'm Sunil Joseph, associated with Edureka, and today we are going to have a webinar about rapid application development using CakePHP. What are the topics we are discussing? What is the agenda of our today's seminar? So our seminar is for a period of 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes. So very fundamental, limited thing, maximum thing we want to get. So what is the agenda of our seminar? We are going to talk about MVC architecture. MVC architecture, model, view, controller, design pattern. Why this MVC is required? Why this MVC design pattern is used for web application development? What is CakePHP? Why we go for CakePHP? We have got many frameworks are there. Why we go for CakePHP? How to install and how to configure CakePHP in our system so that we are able to develop a CakePHP enabled web project. And one simple example, with the limited contents, we are going to develop a web applications. In our regular course, we'll have the detailed application, complete things we'll have. This is a simple application we are going to develop. And hope everybody is having some basic idea about PHP, or as a prerequisite, if you want to know this, some basic knowledge about PHP and MySQL. Because CakePHP is based on PHP language. It is a framework based on PHP language. Now, before coming to CakePHP, let us see what is MVC architecture. Why we need to go for MVC. Now, whenever we talk about a web application development, PHP, Java, .NET, all these languages, ASP, JSP, CGI, Cold Fusion, many languages are there. All these technologies are used for developing a web application. So PHP, when we are talking about PHP's main purpose is to develop a web application. And a web application contains client-side programs and server-side program. So JavaScript is nothing but a client-side scripting language, and PHP is nothing but server-side scripting language. So PHP is used for developing server-side programs in a web application. So what is server-side program? What is the purpose of that? Every server-side program is used for receiving the request from client, process the request, validate the request, process the request, and to give a response back to the client. So every server-side program is used for receiving the request from client, validation of data, whether the data format is correct or not, because every server-side program is getting the data from outside. Every server-side program is working based on external data. We are getting the data from form submission. Client submits the data through form. The data is coming through cookies. The data stored in the client side, the data is coming through cookies. The data may be coming through session. The data may be coming from a database. The data may be coming through a web service. So our server-side program is getting the data from outside. Our server-side program is working with external data. So we need to validate the data. So first, receive the data, then validate the data. Third one, process the data, connect to the database, get data, validate the data, process the data by connecting to the database. Maybe you want to store the data into the database, or we want to retrieve in a login module, we want to retrieve the data from the database, or we want to update the data, or we want to delete the data. So connect to the database and do the business logic and response back to the client, design a response back to the client. So any server-side program, if you develop, every server-side program has to do these 4 things. So PHP is mainly used for developing server-side program. So it has to do 4 things. Get the data. Whenever the client is sending a request to the server, get the data. Validation of data. Process the request by connecting to the database and give a response back to the client. Now, what is the problem? This is what the normal procedure we are using in a normal web application development using PHP. So what are the limitations or what are the drawbacks of developing a web application without using a framework, without using MVC? So one problem, many problems are there. So when those who are aware of PHP, when you take a data-driven application to store the data or retrieve the data or anything, you can see we will write many HTML tags, we write CSS, we write JavaScript, we write PHP code. All the codes are written in the same program itself. That's called as spaghetti code. Spaghetti code. So we use mini spaghetti code. That means in our program, we write the HTML also. Our program is not in an organized manner. Our program contains all the things, the logic for receiving the data, validation of data, processing the data, giving a response. Everything is written in the same program itself. So the complexity to develop the application or the complexity involved in the program is huge. All the things are writing in the same program itself. So whenever you want to make some changes in one part of the program, it will affect the other part of the program because we are writing all the things in the same program itself. Complexity is more. Testing will be difficult. Debugging is difficult. Any updations if you want to do, it is very difficult. And reusability chance is less. I cannot use that in some other projects or in some other module. We cannot use that because we are writing all the things in the same program itself. And parallel programming cannot be done efficiently. Parallel programming cannot be done efficiently. Suppose in my project team, if I have got two members, when I give a task to one person, he has to write all these things. He has to write the code for getting the data, validation of data, processing the data, giving a response back to the client. Everything has to be done by the same programmer himself in the same program. So these are the limitations which are happening. So whenever you are developing, drawbacks of designing an application without using a framework, coding in straight PHP can lead to spaghetti code. That means it contains HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, all the things. Long lines of code that have multiple interactions and typically have HTML code in it. Those who are writing a PHP program, you know what all things are coming inside that. Leads to disorganizations. That means we are not doing our program in an organized manner. Difficult to reuse code. Whenever you make some changes in one part of the program, it may affect some other part. Everything must be tested, which is difficult because it's a complex program. Hard code everything, you have to write all the things. Nobody will provide any free code for us. If you want to insert a record, we have to write the code to connect to the database, select the database, write the query and insert the record, retrieve the record, all the things we have to write. Teamwork challenges, parallel programming cannot be done efficiently. These are all some of the limitations. The main thing is our code is not in an organized manner. Our code is not in an organized manner. So we want to develop our application in an organized manner, in a well-architectured manner. So how to design your application? To specify that, we use something called design pattern. Many design patterns are available. Based on the application development, we have got many design pattern. Something like singleton is a design pattern. So one such design pattern is called as MVC, Model View Controller, MVC. So design pattern is a way to organize in a program in a proper manner. Many design patterns are there. One such widely used design pattern, mainly used in web application development, is called as MVC. So in a normal application development, we are writing everything in the same program itself. The complexity is more. Receiving the data, validation of data, processing the request, giving a response, everything is written in the same program itself. But what MVC says is, MVC design pattern says is, don't write all the things in the same program itself. Don't write all the things in the same program itself. You split it. You split it. Any web application, if you talk about, something will come to the client. So for example, if you are checking your email, I've got my email in Hotmail. I have got my email in Hotmail server. So what I do is, I'll open the browser. I'll send a request to hotmail.com, http://www.hotmail.com. When I send a request, I'll get a response, a login page. There I will enter the data. When I click on login, that request will go to Hotmail. It will connect to the database. If it is available, it will give the response back. So what MVC says is, whenever you develop a web application, you design in an organized manner. So MVC, Model View Controller, 3 parts are coming. 3 containers are coming. One is nothing but model. Another is view. And the third one is controller. Model, view, controller. So what is this model? Before coming to model, let us say view. What is view? View as a definition, when we say presentation of data, presentation of data. So in simple words, what I say is, what is coming, my definition for view is, what is coming to the client is called as a view. What is coming to client is called as a view. So that views, maybe two types are there. One is login page example I told you. So login page, server is not giving any data to us. They are giving a form for the client to enter the username and password. So that is one view used by the client to submit the data to the server. That is one view used by, one type of view used by the client to submit the data to server. Now second case. So we submitted the username and password. It will go to the server, connect to the database, and it will fetch all the data, and it will give the response back. What is there? If my username and password is correct, I'll get all my mails open. I'm getting the data from the server. That is second view. That form is also coming to the client side. That is another type of view that is also coming to the client, that is used by the server to present the data to the client. So in simple words, whatever things are coming in the client's browser is called as a view. Two types of view. One is the view used by the client to submit the data to the server, and another is the view used by the server to give the response back to the client. But remember, all views are coming from the server, but two purposes. One is the view used by the server to get the data from the client. Another is the view used by the server to give the response back to the client. So what is coming to the client is called as view. That's coming from the server only. Then what is this model? Model is nothing but data. So data is nothing but database. So model is used for working with the database, connecting to the database to insert the data, retrieve the data, update the data, delete the data, to perform the database operations that is done by the model. Then what is this controller? Controller is intermediary between the view and the model. So in the previous case, what was happening is client was sending a request directly to the model. Client is sending a request directly to the model, working with the database. Suppose I have got a program called insert-employee.php, one server-side program. From the name itself, we can understand that program is used for inserting an employee details into the database. Insert-employee.php. So what client was doing? Client sends a request http://hostname www.edureka.co:8082/insert-employee.php. It is connecting to a model directly. So in that case, what is the problem? It is not in an organized manner. The client is accessing the model directly. So what are the limitations of that? We have already seen. Because model program has to receive the data, validation, all the things has to be done by the program itself. Or in a real-time scenario, don't think about any programming. You think about Edureka itself. So I am an employee of Edureka, or I am associated with Edureka, but I am the model. You are the client. Whoever is listening this class is the client. So what is happening? I am that model. I have got data. I am talking about CakePHP. I have got the data. You are the client. The client wants data, but are you interacting with me directly? No. If you interact with me directly, my organization will not have the complete details about what is happening. Everything is in a disorganized manner. But what is happening now? You are interacting with Edureka. Edureka will ask me, Sunil, there is a session for CakePHP. You have to take. I'll say yes. Then you are logging into Edureka. Edureka will tell me, start the class. I started the class. I got the intimation at 9:30 sharp. They told me, Sunil, start the class. So model is working. So everything is in organized. So Edureka as the controller, they are having the complete details. What time Sunil has started the class, how many participants are logged in, what are the mail, email ID, all the details are there with the controller. What I am delivering, all the things are there. So it's an organized thing. So in our example, the controller is Edureka. The people who are listening this class are the participants are the view, and I am the model giving the data. Business logic is there with me, so I'm giving that. So normally in MVC, so everything is separated. Working with the database is model. What is coming to the client is called as view. Controller is intermediary between the view and the model. So what happens is, as a diagram, when you see, This is client's browser. This is client's browser. Client will send a request. This is client's browser. This is server. And this is what the database we have. Imagine this is database. Consider this is database. So client's browser, client will send a request. In MVC, client will send a request. This is nothing but the database that we have. So client will send a request to where the request is coming. All the requests will come to controller. All the requests will come to controller. All programs. Then in our program, we have got MVC. Everything is three different parts. Controller, then we got views, and also we have got model, the programs working with the database models. So we got controller. So all the client's requests are for coming to using a client's browser. Remember, this is client's browser. Using this client's browser, client is sending a request to controller, because it is configured in such a way that all the requests should come to controller. Client is not allowed to interact with the model directly. Client is not allowed to interact with the view directly. All the requests will come to controller. And this is what the server is. This is browser. This is server. The above one is client, client's browser or client-side program. So client is sending a request to controller. All the requests will come to the controller. Maybe for the first time, client is sending a request to get the login page. So what it will do, it will forward the request to the view, and the view will come back to the client as a response. The view will come back as a response back. Login page, consider it as hotmail.com as a real-time example. The response is coming back, the login page. Now that response, login page, the view has come to the client. The login page has come to the client. Now that login page is used by the client to send a request. That login page is used by the client to send a request to server. So client sent a request to the controller forwarding the request to view. The response is coming as a login page. Now client will enter the username and password, and it will be sent to the controller. Now controller will know the client's request is to check with the database, login. So each request from the client is called as an action. Please remember this term, because in CakePHP also I use the same term, action. The client's request is to log in. So each request from the client is called as an action. Each request from the client is called as an action. So here, client is not sending a request to a particular program. So in the previous case, client was sending a request to a program, server-side model program, but now action, client is sending a request to the controller. Now controller will understand what is the request of the client. So this time it has to work with the model. So what it will do is, it will forward that request to the model. The client is sending a request to the controller. Controller will forward that request to model. Model contains the business logic. Controller also has got the business logic. Model will work with the database. It will fetch the data, or it will save the data, or delete the data, or update the data, whatever database operations are there. That data, whatever responses are there, whatever response data is there, the data will be forwarded to the controller, and the controller will forward that data. So let us come back to our Hotmail example itself. So first case, client is sending a request. Request will come to the controller. Controller will understand what is the request of the client, what is the action of the client to get a view, login page. Login page has come back to the client. So using that login page, client will submit the username and password. It will come to the controller. Now the controller knows that the client's requirement is to check the username and password is correct or not, or client wants to log in. So that data will be forwarded to model. Model will connect with the database. Yes, it is correct. That user is an authenticated user, and it will fetch all the mails, and all the data, all the mails of that user will be given to the controller. Controller will forward the data to the view, render the data to the view, and the view will give back to the response to client. So this is what, in a simple way, to understand MVC. So you can understand everything is separated. We are not writing all the things together. Everything is separated. So view, presentation of data. Model, working with the database. Controller, intermediary between the view and the model. All the requests and responses are going through the controller. The central part of your application is controller. The central part. Your application is running based on the details of your controller. Controller knows how many views are there. Controller knows what are all the models. So whenever the client is sending a request, that request is called as an action in the case of framework. That's called as a controller. So all the requests are coming to the controller, forward the request to the view or to the model, get the data back, and that data will be rendered to the corresponding view and the response will come back. So what is the advantage? The main advantage, it's not a complex thing. I can make one team member in my project team to develop the view. I can make one person to develop the model. I'll make the other person, or I'll develop the controller. So 3 people are working on the same thing. And whatever the views we are developing, and if you make any changes to the view, it will not affect the model, it will not affect the controller. Everything is loosely coupled. And whatever the views we are designing, the login page, I can use it in some other project. Reusability, testing, everything is simple. So MVC, model view controller, is a design pattern used for developing our application in a well-organized manner, well-architectured manner, especially web applications. Request response application, we are able to develop our application in a well-organized manner. That's what we talk about MVC. Right? Are you clear with that? Now, everyone, you got some basic idea about what I talked about MVC? Have you got some idea about MVC? It's a seminar, so I'll continue with that because we have got less time. So those who are able to write, you can just give yes or no, so that I'll have some understanding that whoever is listening, they are getting my things, what I'm delivering. Are you clear with that? What is MVC? So MVC is nothing but a design pattern used for designing your application in a well-organized manner. It is used for designing your application in a well-organized manner. That's what we talk about MVC. Well, now we'll just go through that presentations, what we have mentioned. So what are the drawbacks we discussed about? What are the drawbacks of MVC we have discussed? I mean, without a framework. Then MVC is acronym for model view. So we already discussed about that. So it will be easy for you to understand. So MVC is acronym for model view controller. MVC is software design pattern for developing web and desktop, mainly web application. It separates the application logic in easily manageable containers. So it is converting it into 3 different parts. One is model, data, view, presentation of data, and controller, the controlling part, the main part of your application. All the requests are coming to controller. Responses are also managed by the controller. So model, container, manages the data and business logic of the application. It receives requests from controller to update the data, retrieve the data, delete the data, any database operation. All the requests are coming from the controller. Client cannot interact with the model. Client cannot interact, the view cannot interact with the model. So all the requests are coming to controller. Controller will forward that. Model encapsulates the database and file access from rest of the application logic. The view manages. So what is coming to the client? That's what one word definition I told you. The presentation of data to the client is called as view. The view container manages the presentation of data in specific format. View handles all the user interface elements like forms, table, formatted data, the presentation of data. View also implements templates to unify the overall look and feel of the website. Whatever things are coming to the client is called as view. 2 types. One is view used by the server that is coming in the client side, but server is using that view to get the data, make the client to submit the data. And another is the view used by the server to give the response, the data back to the client, presentation of data. The controller, the most important thing, the controller container manages all the communication between model and view. So as a flow diagram, when you see, that's what I showed you, the client is just recap. What is happening whenever you are working on your email or your web application, what is happening? Client is sending a request. That is the first case. The request is taken by the controller, second case. Controller will understand what is the request of the client. If it knows that it is to a view, it will forward that request to the view. If it is to a model, it will forward that to the model. Model will work with the database or work with the business logic, get the data back. Controller will forward that data to the view. View will come back to the client. Controller can be considered. It can be considered as a brain. As a diagram, when you see, that's what the diagram when we see. Normally, the view will, this diagram, this arrow mark, you can consider it as this is coming to the website user. So all the requests are coming to controller, forward the request to the model. Model will work with the database, get the data back to the controller. Controller will forward the data to the view, and this arrow mark, you can give it to the client. The view will come back to client side. That's the same diagram what we mentioned. So that is what we talk about MVC. So what is the purpose of MVC? To develop our web application in a well-organized, well-architectured manner. To develop our application in a well-architectured manner as into different parts, so that what are the advantages we have already discussed about. So using this MVC framework in PHP, we have got many frameworks are there. Framework means they will provide most of the things. We just need to customize it. All the APIs will be given. We just need to customize it based on our requirement. For example, when you purchase a mobile phone, in the mobile phone, all the things are available. When you get that, we will change the screen, we'll change the ringtone, we'll change the alarm settings. We are only changing. We are not developing anything. So a framework is also something like that. It's nothing but a collection of API which is already available. Using that, we can develop our application in a customized manner. So using PHP, based on MVC, we have got many frameworks. Using PHP, based on MVC, to develop a well-architected, because PHP's main purpose is used for developing web application development. So in an organized manner, if you want to develop, many frameworks based on MVC is developed using PHP. One such framework is called as CakePHP. We have got Zen framework that is also based on PHP. We have got Symfony, CodeIgniter, Symfony, PHP, Y framework, YII. So many frameworks are there. CakePHP, Symfony, Doctrine, another framework that is also based on PHP. Many other frameworks are there developed using PHP based on MVC architecture to develop your application in a well-architectured manner. So CodeIgniter, Zen framework, CakePHP, Symfony, Doctrine, YII. So many frameworks are there which are developed in PHP. So one such framework, very simple to use framework, is nothing but CakePHP, used for developing our application. So CakePHP is an open source, free to download and use framework, MVC based framework, developed using PHP to develop a well-architectured web application. The definition is common for all these frameworks. So, but we are discussing about CakePHP. CakePHP is open source, free to download, PHP framework based on MVC, a purely OOPS-based, object-oriented programming structure-based, PHP-based framework used for developing well-architectured web application. Well-architectured web application. What is CakePHP? It is free, open source, rapid development framework for PHP. In a short period of time, you are able to develop beautiful applications. Because the main advantage is we are not writing all the code. In the normal web application development in PHP and all, we have to write all the things. But in the case of framework, CakePHP or Zen framework or CodeIgniter, you can reduce the code. You don't need to write much things. Follows and implements MVC architecture, provides basic structure for organizing files and database tables, names, keeping everything consistent and logical. Other available frameworks, Zen framework, CodeIgniter, Laravel, Symfony, Doctrine, many frameworks are there developed using PHP. And it uses many other related programming design patterns also. It's not only MVC. They used something called the code convention. We are developing our program based on code convention. So code convention is nothing but, for example, I have got a database table. I've got a database table called people or peoples or employees. I've got a table called employees. That's a name which is given for our table. The corresponding model. Now you have to come back to what we discussed about model. Model is used for working with the database. Database means table. So our database table name is nothing but employees, plural form. What is the model name? Employee. Employees is actual table name. Then normally the model name will be employee. That's what code by convention. That's also a design paradigm that we are using in our application development. So in short, CakePHP is an open source rapid development framework for PHP. Why we use CakePHP? The next agenda of our course. What is MVC? The most important is MVC. And another important thing is application development using CakePHP. Because what is CakePHP? Why we use CakePHP? They're all theoretical part. What is MVC? You should have a clear understanding. What is model? What is view? What is controller? Because entire frameworks are based on CakePHP. Some of you are working in ASP.NET. If you're working on Java, Struts, or Spring Web MVC, or .NET, we have got MVC. PHP, we have got MVC. So the most important is you should understand what is basically model, view, and controller. Now, why we go for CakePHP? 1 minute, please. Well, so open source and flexible licensing. Open source. Yes, Gaurav is having a question. Please, can you show me practically through CakePHP? Yeah, that's what our last agenda is. We are going to develop a CakePHP project, Gaurav. We will see that. Gaurav, I'll show you a simple application using CakePHP. So what I told this naming convention, if you want, it's not that you have to follow the same thing. We can use that with that also. Gaurav Roy, are you there? Yes, we will see that. That's what our last agenda of our seminar. Well, support MVC architecture, easy to install with minimal configuration. Only three configurations are there. Faster to learn, powerful in build, form, validation using model. In the model itself, we can do the validation. For example, login screen or user registration. So name, first name, last name, email ID. Email ID should be a valid email. Age should be between 10 and 90. These are all validations that can be defined. Custom validations can be defined in our model. In CakePHP, we have got model. CakePHP, Cake baked to generate ready to use code. This is nothing but from the console. Console means command prompt. Don't care much about that. From the command prompt, we are developing a CakePHP. So till now, those who are working in PHP program, we use some IDEs, PHP Designer, Rapid PHP, Zen Studio, Komodo, Code Lobster, or Cloud Space. We'll develop our project. But if you want, we have got Cake Bake is the command. One space also you can give in between. Cake Bake. Integrated CRUD for database interaction. You don't need to write any code. Just say insert or update or delete, only that. View helpers for Ajax, JavaScript, email, cookies, say all the things can be done. All the things we'll see in our regular codes of CakePHP. How to do the form validation, how to integrate Ajax, how to work with email, session, cookie, all that things we'll discuss in our regular course. Then code generation and scaffoldings. It's a term which is coming from Ruby on Rails, another MVC framework thing. Scaffolding is a programming technique popularized by Ruby on Rails, where code is generated for basic database operation. We are not going to write any code. So normally we know if you want to work with any database, what you have to do, you have to write the SQL. If you want to insert a record, we have to write, connect to the database, select the database, and you need to pass the SQL. Then only the record will be inserted. But scaffolding is nothing but a technology which is used by Ruby on Rails, another MVC framework. Ruby is a programming language. Ruby on Rails is nothing but MVC, database operation. Easy configuration, 3 changes. 2 changes to a file, 1 file. There is a file called core.php, generate database config that we'll see practically. MVC clean, MVC implementation. Out of the box functionality, database support, form creation, validation. It's not like a normal traditional programming. If you want to have a text field in a HTML, we will write HTML input type is equal to text, name is equal to something, ID is equal to something, color, all the things we'll write in a traditional. It's not in that way. When you see the program, you'll understand. Stars a huge community to support us. Broad use, it is started in the year 2005. CakePHP. CakePHP international thing, they have developed this in the year 2005. Then what are the prerequisites of CakePHP 2.5.6 or 2.5.8? Anything which is available we'll work on, or latest last month, 3rd June 11th 2015, 3 also, everything is similar. So Apache HTTPD server, PHP 5.2.8 or higher. At present, we have got PHP 5.6.10. MySQL 4 or 5 higher. It is better to work with the MySQL 5. We are assuming that we already have PHP and MySQL. When I use these terms, you should remember this is CakePHP is based on PHP. So the prerequisite is some basic knowledge about PHP that people only will understand hereafter. Till now, what we told is normal theoretical thing. What is MVC? What is PHP? What are the features? Why we need to go for PHP? All the things. But hereafter, some basic knowledge about PHP is required. Yes, Gaurav, we can use. I'm coming to that installation and all. I'll come to that, Gaurav. We can use that. No issues. Am I right, Gaurav? I'll come back to that. That's what we are going to see. I'll talk about that. What all things are required, right? Gaurav, can you give a reply back, please? Right. Yes. Now we are going to see 2.5.6 or 2.5.8. Anything? Prerequisites. Download CakePHP version from any of these things from this particular. Many different ways you can do that. Manually, we are going to download. We can use PAR, PHP extensions, applications repository we can use, or cakephp.org. From that site we can download. Then once this file is downloaded, so now listen carefully, we are going to see the practical part. How to install CakePHP. What are the configurations you need to do? Where to place this program? All that things. Extract this file. Once you get this 2.5.6 or 2.5.8 or 3. Anything. To get the document root directory, now you extract this. I already placed it. You can go to that URL and you extract this. I have got CakePHP hyphen 2.5.8. You can go through this, and 2.5.8 also you can download. Then you extract this. I am going to extract this here itself. So we downloaded. So I just pre-created that, that's all. We downloaded and we extracted that. Now, what application we are going to develop? I'm going to develop an application for Edureka. So you can rename it. If you want, you rename it with your application name. Rename. I'm going to rename it as Edureka. CakePHP is nothing but we given it as Edureka. And where to place this? Anywhere, any web server that supports PHP. Any web server that supports PHP. If you're having WAMP on Windows, you can have that because Apache is coming. WAMP installation, if you're having Windows Apache MySQL PHP, you can have it on LAMP, Linux Apache MySQL PHP. We can have it on MAMP, Macintosh Apache MySQL PHP. We can have it on XAMPP, cross-platform Apache MySQL PHP Perl. So our system is Windows. I'm working on Windows 7. So if it is Linux, LAMP or XAMPP for Linux, if you're working on Mac, MAMP or XAMPP for Mac, corresponding things. And I am working on XAMPP. And you are already aware of every web server has got a server directory or document directory, the directory where you need to place your server-side programs. So in our case, we are using XAMPP for Windows. So in this, our presentation is based on XAMPP for Windows, cross-platform, Apache, MySQL, PHP, Perl. XAMPP we are having. Cross-platform, Apache, MySQL, PHP for Windows. So we are working based on XAMPP. Now in my system already I have got XAMPP. This is what XAMPP we are having. We'll just go to a file to know which is the server directory. Mostly you are already aware of these things. So I'll go to httpd.conf file. When I go to httpd.conf file, you search for document directory. Document directory or document root, not document directory, document root. What is document root? The directory out of which you will serve your document. Forget about that. Simple way. By default, all requests are taken from this directory. From this, you can understand this is a server directory. So in our case, c:/xampp/htdocs is the server directory or the document directory. This is the directory where you need to place your program. Then you start your Apache server. Normally Apache is working in the port of 80, but I changed the port number to 8082. and you start your MySQL. I'm starting my MySQL database server. 3306 is the port number. Apache we started. So download this, and that is an httpd.conf file. You search for document root, it will have the document root directory path. So we understood it is c:/xambp/htdocs folder. c:/xambp/htdocs folder. This is what the presentation. So Edureka is giving all the things in a proper manner. You can see this very clearly. c:/ also may be there. So they have not given that. Maybe it is in D drive. It will be corresponding to that. htdocs is the document directory, document root. You can see all requests are taken from this directory. Now you place this. So what change I have done is, I'm not working with the CakePHP-2.5.6. I changed it as Edureka as a project. So we have got Edureka. I'll take this and we will place it in our C drive, XAMPP, htdocs. This is the folder, I place it. So it's nothing but one more web application we loaded based on, the name is Edureka. So we started our Apache, we started our MySQL. So we know how to access that local host or name of the system you can provide. So I open the browser and I'll send a request to http:// localhost, the port number 8082/Edureka. So we are going to see our Cake installation. One part is installation of CakePHP is over. What we have done, I repeat, download CakePHP. You Google for CakePHP. You Google for CakePHP download. Download CakePHP. You will get a zip file. Extract it. Rename the directory if you want, or you work with the same thing, but it's not advisable to work with the same thing because we are developing a web application. Who is our client? What is our application? So my application is Edureka. I renamed it into Edureka. Then copy it into the document root of your web server. If it is WAMP, where to place? Gaurav has asked a question, is it possible to work on WAMP? Only the difference is, in this place, htdocs. In the case of WAMP, it is www, if I'm not wrong. www, you can place your program. You place it in that. Start Apache server and you press enter. This is the first screen we are getting. Release notes for CakePHP 2.5.8. Notice, two notices they are giving. Please change the value of security.salt in app/config/core.php. So when you install CakePHP, what are the directory structure? We got app folder, we got lib folder, we got plugins folder, we got vendors folder, we got index.php, we got htaccess. The server configurations we can give there. The most important is app folder, because we are going to develop our application based on MVC. We are developing our application based on MVC, model, view, controller, design pattern. So all that model, view, controller, the complete business logic, complete project, everything is available inside this app folder. Let us go to this app folder. Configurations are there. All controllers are available. Model, view, MVC. So in our seminar, we are not going to talk about any other directory. Model, controller, view, everything is separated. All the views are coming here. All the models working with the database things to be written inside model, controller. And one more folder, web root. So when you develop a web application, we may use some CSS file, we may use some JavaScript, we may use some JavaScript, CSS, some images we may use. All that things should come in the web root folder, CSS file. In this project, cake.generic.css is the CSS file they are using. Files, images, some icons are there. JavaScript, empty, nothing is there. So app is the folder which contains all our business logic code, the programming code. Web root contains all the public facing files like JavaScript, CSS, images, all the things, controller, config. So app/config, what they are telling, that is app folder. library, you should not make any changes. See, you are developing a PHP thing in XAMPP or WAMP or LAMP. For example, if you are working with the MySQL underscore connect, all are available in the PEAR folder. PHP extensions application repository. The same way, to develop a CakePHP project, what all things APIs are developed by CakePHP people, all are available inside this. Never make any changes into this. Error handling, configuration, network, model, I18N. What is I18N? A word starts with I, ends with N. In between I and N, 18 characters are coming. Internationalization. I18N. Starts with I, ends with N, in between 18 characters. If you write that, you can understand that. This is what all the APIs, never make any changes into that. They are all library. Plugins and vendors will be empty by default. If you use your own plugin, collection of model controllers and all, that thing will come here. If you use any of the third-party plugins and all, that will come inside this folder. So in the presentation, we have mentioned that what is the purpose of that. So now start the Apache and MySQL server. If it's not already running, start the server, open browser and provide Edureka. Browser will show the CakePHP index page. This means your CakePHP has been set up correctly, but some slight changes to be done. There are some warnings displayed. That's what we've seen. Which are the warnings? Notice, please change the value of security.salt in app/config/core.php to a salt value specific to our application. They're given some model values specific to our application. If you want to do some encryption, decryption algorithms, if you want to use some security.sfc, we need to provide that. Some values you need to provide. So otherwise, you will get a message like this. Same thing only we are getting. These are the directories. There are 4 core directories under CakePHP: app, lib, plugins, and vendors. Main working directory for CakePHP development contains all custom application code, including model, view, controller. Everything is available in different folders. Each and everything is coming in different folders. Also contains public web root directory. The CSS, JavaScript, images, everything is coming there. Lib contains all the core CakePHP libraries. So our support team has telling, do not modify any files in this directory as it will affect the core CakePHP functionality because they are all libraries. Plugins, empty by default, can contain custom plugins made available to enhance, can contain how to integrate that, all the things we'll see in our regular class. So mainly we talk about a simple application, app, all these things. Now, what are the changes to be done if you want to make it correctly? Go to this file. Where is that file? This one, app config core.php. I'm not using any IDs now. Manually we will do. We'll open this in Edit Plus. Control F. I'll change the value. They have given the value, but they don't want to work with their value. A random string used in security hashing with any security algorithms, if they are using, what is the purpose, where it is used, we'll see in our regular class. I'm giving it as AA. Any character, BB, CC, DD, E, F, something, that's enough. Just we can remember that. And below that, a random numeric string used to encrypt or decrypt. This is what the data they will use for encryption and decryption algorithms. I'll give it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Enough. It's not that you have to give all the values. We given these 2 changes. That is what when we see in the previous presentation, we seen that 2 changes in one file, that is core.php. By seeing this output itself, we can understand. They are giving very clearly, I made that change. Save the file, refresh this. The error has gone. Have you seen? This your PHP version is 5.2.8 minus 5.6.8 or something. This is 5.28. Your TMD directory is writable because caching, session, all the data is being saved in TMP folder. The file engine is being used for core caching to change the config and all. That's not required now. Now, yellow colored thing, we have not given any database configuration. So because we have not discussed about what project we are going to do. So when you discuss about the project, then we can change this, what is required and all. So what we are going to do is, we are going to develop a simple application to have some basic idea about CakePHP. What we are doing, a user management system, CRUD operation. A web application to display all the user details with an option to add a new user, edit an existing user, and to delete a user using CakePHP. Important is using CakePHP. So mostly you are all the people who are attending this seminar, already you have done these operations in a normal manner. So now when I show, you will understand how easy working with the frameworks, especially CakePHP. So we are going to develop a user management system. How to? So we want to design our application in the home page, our website home page. We want to get all the user details in a tabular manner with an option to edit and delete each employee, each user, and also we want to add a new user. So how many? I told this. You listen carefully. We want. I am your client. My requirement is I want you to develop an application that should display all my users, all my employees in my company in a tabular manner with an option to edit, delete, and to add a new user. How many actions are required in our project? How many actions? Each request from the client is called as action. How many actions are required for the client? Can anyone answer my query, please? How many? My application is, we want to develop an application to display all the employee details or user details with an option to create a new user, add a new user. That's what, create a new user, edit a user, delete a user. How many action requests from the client? What are the different requests from the client? How many actions are required? Can anyone answer my query, please? Can anyone answer my query, please? No response? How many actions are required? Gaurav says 1 action. Safdar says 3 action. Again, Gaurav changed the value to 4. So we need to have 4 actions. Jay, no need of 5 action. 4 actions are enough. Because one is to get the home page. We call it as index action. We call it as index action, but no need of using that term index action. So I use one more MS Paint. We want to create a project. So already in the design they have mentioned that. What is that? A web application to display all the user details with the option to add a new user, edit an existing user, and to delete a user using CakePHP. Application to perform simple CRUD operation, create, retrieve, update, delete operation. What you do is create a database with the name Edureka. You can use PHP but I use normal command prompt. cd/cd xampp/mysql/bin. I work with the normal default username and password. We are not going to create a new user and all. I'm working with the default username root with no password. So MySQL -u root, no password. So what I do is I'll create a database. Show. I'll create, so drop Edureka. Drop database Edureka. So what we do is we'll create a new database with the name of Edureka. So what? Create, because any project development, we need to have the database design first. So we are going to create a database that create database Edureka. We will activate the database. So there is no tables here. No tables here. So I'll create a table. Which table? We will create a table with the name of users. Code by convention. I used that term before. Gaurav has asked me a question also. So what I'm doing, I'm creating a table with the name of users. So what will be the model name? User. This is not that you have to follow the same thing. What they tell is this is what the best way to work on. Code by convention. Users is the table name and model can be user. This is plural. ID, we can give it as primary key, auto increment, first name, last name, email, mobile. So what I do is I've already prepared the steps to create that to save the time because we are having very less time. So downloaded that, extract the above file, configure CakePHP. To do this 2 changes, Then start Apache web server. Project description is this. We want to have controllers views for reading data, adding, editing, deleting. Create a database with the name Edureka, and I am creating a table with the name of users, ID, auto increment, first underscore name, last underscore name, email, mobile. Primary key is ID, engine is some MySQL, indexed sequential access method. Forget about that. So I'm going to create a table. DSC users. Our database table name is users. ID, primary key, auto increment. You don't need to give a value. Automatically it will come. First name, last name, email, mobile. No records. Select star from users. This is the database table. So into this, so very simple project, users. So we need to write the code for inserting the record, retrieving the record, updating the record, deleting the record. Now, before coming to this, we will have a controller. Whenever you have the controller, provide the related with the table name, users, followed by controller. The naming convention says the table name, users, controller. It is called as the, how it is coming, conventions are coming, camel cased. You know, camel, when you see camel, each word's first letter is capital letter. Users, controller is one class. Now, what is action? It's a child class. You class users controller extends something. Extends app controller. So some class extends is a keyword used for, because every frameworks are purely based on object-oriented programming. Class users controller. Now, what all actions are there? In our case, we want to have the home page. The default action is called as index action, function index. So this is what the action. So which is a controller name? Users. What is the action which is available? Only one action, which is that index action to get the home page. Then what are the other actions are required in our project? I want to add a new record. I call it as add. Action name as add. If it is a Zen framework, they will write add action. A capital letter will come. Add action. Index action. Only the difference. Now, what is the other action is required? Function edit action. And function delete. So these are the 4 actions required for our project. So from this, you have to understand how to create that. So controller, users table name followed by controller, function index, home page, add, edit, delete. Now, how many actions are coming? 4 actions are coming. Now, what we will write in this index control action, we will write the code to retrieve all the records from which table? Users table. To work with the users table, we need to have a model. So we will write the code to retrieve. Normal code means traditional application will say select star from users. So come back again. We have got the database. Edureka is a database. Username to connect is root with no password, and table name is users, which has got all these column. So if it is a normal traditional application to retrieve all the records, we'll say select star from users. But in this case, it's not required. You write that code, forward that data to the view. Add action, insert the record. Edit action, edit the current record. Edit and add form will be same. We want to show a form. In edit also, we want to show a form with the data. Delete, delete the record. Now, every action, so controller is this, action is this. And every action has got a corresponding view. So delete in our project we may not use, but normally, what is the view? What is coming to the client? That will be in the case of CakePHP. It's called as CakePHP template index.ctp, CakePHP template. What is coming here? Along with the action name only, view also will come. Naming is very important. Add.ctp, cake template, edit.ctp. Delete if it is not there, nothing to be given, then you can say it's not required. Delete.ctp. CakePHP template. Now, controller, users controller. Now one thing we're missing, that is model. That's what most important thing first we require. Now I'm just telling the flow to have an idea. A controller, users controller, action name, index, add, edit, delete, the request of the client. Now how the client is able to send a request to index? Client will open the browser, provide the URL http:// we are working in our local system. The port number is 8082 / application name is Edureka. Now you need to provide the controller name. Which is a controller name? Which is a controller name? Users. Don't write controller. Before that, what is coming? Users. A smaller you can give. If you say only users, by default it will access index action. Or if you want, you can say /index. So what will happen? It will come to users controller. It will come to index action. After doing this business logic, it will go to index.ctp. That index.ctp will give the response back to the client with the help of a layout. We may not explain that layout now. Just understand the flow. Now, how the client is able to access the add action. How the client is able to access the add action. Users is a controller name. Provide it as add. The other one, what is that? Edit action, you can access it in this manner. Controller name and action name you provide. Add, edit, save, delete. So what will happen if you say add? It will come to add action. From there it will go to, after doing that, this is what it will create a model object, and that model object will insert the data, retrieve and all. From there it will go to add.ctp, the structure of our program. And from add.ctp, the response will come back to the client. So this is what you need to understand about this application. So if you are having some basic, so we have got very short span of time. Just I'm trying in a very simple manner for you to understand the structure. If you know this, I'm going to our program. Programming will be simple. So we created the table. If you want to insert some records into this, so let us insert some record, because ID is auto increment. Insert into users, which are the column. ID is not there. First, you can use PHP myadmin also. First name, last underscore name, comma, email, comma, mobile, values. Let me give my name itself. First name Sunil, last name Joseph, comma, email. So I am just writing Sunil at, this is not a valid email ID of mine, hotmail.com, something we given. It's not valid name, some number. This is also not valid mail number. 8 digits we given. This is one record. I'll insert only one record. So select star from users. This is one record we have. So our index action, I use the term index action, should display these records with an option to edit and delete the record. So we created the database table. Now what we do is provide the database configuration. So it is saying that the database configuration is not there. So what you do is open this project, Edureka, in app, in config. There is a file called database.php.default. This is not the correct file. You need rename it. You open this in editor. I'm saving it as database.php. .default should not come. We created database.php. .default should not come. You come to this, provide the database details. If you're working, you can work with the database /MySQL is for MySQL 4 and 5. Database with SQLite database, PostgreSQL, SQL Server. This is what the database type, data source. You can see we are working with the MySQL. Come down, database config, array of, data source, database /MySQL, correct. Forget about persistent, host name, localhost, username. What is the username? Root. What is the password? No password is given to authenticate. What is the database name? You remember, Edureka is our database name. These are all the details you have to provide. Database configuration details are given in database.php, but that file you cannot see there. What you can see is database.php.con, default. You rename it, provide the database details. What is the database name? Our database name is nothing but Edureka. That same details are given here. Now you refresh this page and you see this message is going or not. Gone. CakePHP is able to connect to this debug kit and all. We'll study in regular class. But this is not what the default controller we want to have. We want to have our own controller. This is default controller of CakePHP. We want our own controller users. So what to do? First thing is model part. Creating the model. Create a new file name. Where the model to be placed? Model should be placed in app folder, model directory. You need to place that model. So how to do that? Create a file. Controller class names are plural. Users controller and end in controller. Model class names are singular. So our table name is user. So we will have the model name as user. So this is what Gaurav or somebody has asked me. Can you show practically? This is what our table name is users. Class name is user. Extends app model. This can be anything. So this is what the model. I call it as user.php. Where to save this? In the app/model directory. So I'm going to create a new. I'm using Edit Plus here. You can do it in IDE also. PHP. I'll write this. I'll save this in where? Model app/model/ what is the name of the program? We'll give user.php. We write the program as user.php. So remember, users is the database table name. So the corresponding model name is user.php. Class user extends child class of app model. We created the user. Then after that, create controller and views. So what is the name of the controller? Users controller. That's what I showed you in the demonstration. Users controller extends app controller. Child class is app controller. Previously it was app model. This is the table name. Now index action. Now this is what which I want to show you. Normally you have to understand what is our project is. We want to develop a project. MS Paint. It should have the home page. How the home page should look like. So home page look like in this manner. So one heading. In our project also, form design will come and with an option to add new user, a anchor tag. We want to have ID, first name, last name, email, mobile, actions or operations. So what is the ID based on our table? It's nothing but select star from users. This value we should get. 1, first name Sunil, last name Joseph, email Sunil at in a tabular manner. That thing, mobile what number we given, action what anchor tag, edit or delete. This is what we want to have. This is what the home page we want to have. Now how to retrieve all the data? It's a normal traditional application means we'll say select star from users. Connect to the database, select the database, select star from users, we'll say. But in the case of this one, which one? CakePHP, what we write is $this current class, controller class tends to set users. It can be anything. You can write it as XYZ, no problem. This is treat it as a variable name. It's nothing but in a traditional application, what we'll say, $rs is equal to select star from users. So rs contains all the records. Same way, $this tends to user. What is user? Model. It will point to users table. Tends to find all the records. This is in a normal, something like LKG standard way you can understand, or a class 5 standard. What is this telling? $this tends to user. User is nothing but the model which is representing the users table. It is asking to find all the records. So when as a programmer, you can consider it as select star from users. User tends to users table. It will fetch all the records, select star from users, and that records are stored into users variable. Users variable. So what is this index action is doing? It is fetching all the records, and all the records are stored in users variable, and that users variable can be used in index.ctp program. So what I do is I'll write this thing and I call this program as, what is the name of the program? We'll give it as users controller.php itself. Copy, in the controller folder. File, new, others, PHP, Control V. Users controller.php in the controllers folder. So you come to controller. So many are there, pages controller, so plural. So we give it as users controller.php. Users controller.php is a program. So what it is doing, this is what the statement you have to understand. What is this? It's a variable. Set all the records from user table. User means users table, plural form, into this users variable. And from here, automatically, it will go to which place? It will go to the view. Which is a corresponding view? That's what I told you. The view is nothing but index.ctp. And where this index.ctp should come? In the views folder. So what I do is, the controller functions are called. What is happening? We will study. You can go through that. Create a view file, index.ctp. What is CTP? CakePHP template in app/view/users folder. So inside this view, in your project, multiple controllers are there. Pages is one controller. So all the views related with the pages controller is available inside this. Only home page is there. Scaffolds. Now what we require is, what is our controller name? Users, capital letter or small letter you can give. Users, the controller name should be correctly given. Inside this users, we need to create index.ctp. That naming is also important. Now what is happening? Index.ctp file should create some heading, add new user, action. It's a URL. What should happen if anyone clicks on this? It will go to a URL. Which URL? This URL should go. But you don't need to write the complete URL. You specify the controller name and you provide the action name. Add is action name. So what we do is, in index.ctp, HTML link, add new user, array of controller name is users, action name is add. If you convert this, it will be http://localhost 8082/Edureka is application /users/add. Then user data, Edureka users data. Table, ID, first name, last name, email, mobile. Now this index is getting the data. That's what you remember MVC. The controller is getting the data from model, and that data, in this case, it is stored in a variable called users, and that variable will come to the corresponding view, and the view will render the output and send it back to the client. So what it is doing in this one, $users, from where this variable is coming, from where this variable is declared, that variable is declared in the controller users. If you say X, I told you XYZ, you can give. If you say XYZ, here also it should be XYZ. So multiple records are there, but in our case only one record. User, model's ID value, first name value, last name value, email value, mobile value, with an option to edit and delete is required, but we will see in the next step. So I'll copy. In the regular class, we will write each statement line by line so that you'll have a more understanding. This also you can understand. And each, all these things. So what is the name? Action is index. So controller name is CTP, index.ctp. Where to save? In the corresponding file, new. So CTP file, PHP, save it, file, save it in the view. Which view? Users view, index.ctp, 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 we are saving this. Index.ctp, we are saving this. So this users variable is coming from the controller. This users. If you say XYZ, you write here XYZ. And we are getting the ID value. This is a model or a user of, this is each record we are taking, a multidimensional array, user of ID, users table ID value, first name value, last name value, email value, mobile value. But in the one more column is there that we have not done. Actions. We have not written anywhere anything. Just we'll make it as a link later. So our first case is over. So you open the browser. Send a request to users is a controller name. Enough. Index is a default action name. So if you're not giving the action name also, nothing will happen. So what will happen if you say user/index? It will come to index action. it will get all the values and store it into users, and it will be auto. It knows because controller action name and the view name are same, CTP. I'm going to press enter. Have you seen? This all the things are coming not because of our design. There is a layout they are using. Because this data only we have done. We have not done these color combinations and all. It is coming from the corresponding CSS file in WebRoot. And this is coming from the corresponding layout file. This is not that we have done all these things. You can make any changes. If you want to remove all these things, you go to that corresponding layout and you can do that. You can make changes in the CSS file. So we got all the record. Add new user. What is this bottom? What is coming? You see localhost 8082/edureka/user/add action. Action we need to write only one record. Because of that, it's coming as one record. So this is coming. This data is giving the response back through a layout. The layout is also there in our application folder. You can go to that layout and you are able to make changes into that corresponding layout is there. This is one view, index.ctp. Then the next thing is create a controller for add data. If you are saying add data, a form should come. So you need to add one more method, function, add function. If data is not there, if not empty, if it is not empty, data is empty, just give the keyword, that's all. The controlling add the function, it knows that. And $this tends to user. Previously we used find all, select. Nowadays save, insert. And we are giving a flash message. Your user data has been saved. Redirect to action index. After saving the data, redirect to index action, so that it will display all the things. So I'm adding this add function, add control. That's what I showed you this diagram. This one is what you need to understand clearly. Add action, how to define. If you write something in add, it will go to add.ctp. So add.ctp should display a form for the client to enter. So in user controller, the second action, add action. If the data is it's not empty, save it into the model. That means automatically the data will come into the table. So whenever you say add, it will automatically go to the form. It will automatically access the form. Then we need to have what else is required for us? We need to have the corresponding view, add.ctp. What is coming in add.ctp? Create a view file for add action. So that's nothing but in users controller, add.ctp form. Very simple way we did. We are not using the conventional HTML design. We have got many other things you can do. This is nothing but form helper is designing the form. Form helper. So text align sender, add new user h1, create a form is created, a form tag is created. This is a text field, first name, last name, email, mobile, name of the fields, save new user. And if you say submit button will come. This is form is created, submit button, and the form ID and all, it has got some naming convention. First model name will come, then form name ID will come that way. So what we do is we'll create add.ctp. Where to create this? Inside the view. Inside the view, which views? Users, and there we say add.ctp. So I'll say this, Control V, add new user. So inside view, inside users, add.ctp, add.CakePHP template. Give this. So these are all form helper. We can have checkbox, we can have radio button, we can have password field. You change it as password, you give it as radio and all, 2 buttons, male, female. So we need to have an array. What validations are required? All the things we can specify. All the things, form validation, that will be taken care in the model, and the form helper. Now let us see add action we have done. How to access add action? Index, in the place of index you give add, or you click on this, a form will come. Have you seen? Simple. Very less code, the thing is coming. You can go to layout also. In the regular class I'll show you. You can go to layout, you can make any changes into that. So I'm giving some other name as Ashwin. Last name Gupta. Email ashwin@edureka.co. It's not valid email. Don't consider any of valid email or anything. No. So I given this. At present, how many records are there? Only one record. I'll click on save new record. So data is not empty. What is written in our code in the action controller? Data is not empty. So what it will do? It will save the data into the database. Save new user. Your user data has been saved. Flash news. Flash. Your user data has been saved. Redirect to home page. This data is redirected to this. Ashwin. Any user can be created. I'm creating one more user. Username. ID value is coming auto increment. I'm giving it as Sanjay Singh or Sachin Tendulkar. Last name Tendulkar. Sachin at bcca.com. Sachin's number. Save new user. The data is saved. Output is able to see, but more the simple rather than this output, you can see our programming. How many lines of code to save? Only one line of code. That's what we say. Very simple way of developing an application. Now we'll come to the editing and deleting in a fast manner. The code, you can access this in this manner. Create what it is doing. It will create a form, input, end what it is doing, submit button is coming. Then for editing the data, delete link in index, create, edit and delete link in index. So we'll have edit and delete link in index.ctp. So what we do is, in the last column, you add this also of index.ctp, because our page, there is no actions are given. So what we do is, you come to index.ctp and in the last column, td, all of this tends to HTML, tends to link, edit, array of action tends to edit, the ID value, which record to be edited, or in this case, delete action, ID, are you sure is a message as an array we are giving. Now you see the difference. We are refreshing. You see here, all the records are coming. Edit. You can see in the status bar, edit/1, because ID value given, edit/2, edit/3. Because we have not done anything in the edit action, because we don't have any edit action. When anyone clicks on that, it will go to edit action. If anyone clicks on this link, it will go to delete action, but we don't have edit action and delete action. We have got only two action, index as well as add. So let us create edit action. If the ID is null, if ID is not given, default value will be taken. Get the ID. If it is empty, forward the data to read. What is this? Select that particular ID value. If data is not there, update, save this data. Use flash message is this, redirect to index. That is, index action is over. Very simple. In the real class, I will show you all the things. So just understand this. Redirecting this, your data with the ID, so and so ID has been updated, that message will come. So we are ID. If ID is coming, that is edit. If ID is not there, that is add. Add and edit, same form only. If ID is coming, that is edit. If ID is not there, then it is add. If it is empty, read the data. If the data is empty, read the data. Then save the data. If the data is not empty, save the data, save and flash message. Same way I will include delete also. Edit.ctp is required. So what is required? Edit the data. User array of action is edit. Create form. ID value is given. Type is hidden field. If the hidden field is there, that is a form. It is all the values will come. All the values will be stored there. So edit.ctp. I know I'm going a bit fast, but by seeing this, if you understood what I explained theoretically, this will be a simple coding. It's not PHP, CTP file. I'm writing file save edit.ctp. Where? In this one itself. Views only, edit.CakePHP template. Edit.ctp. Save this. Let us run this. Now I'll write delete action also. So delete is nothing but no views are required. Just write the delete action. Delete the data. This is delete. ID is coming. You can give it as ID is equal to null. This user tends to delete of ID. That's all. The user with ID has been deleted and forward to the index. Nothing else. Delete action. Copy. This is what the code. So you understand. You don't think about the background what is happening. That is what CakePHP. So you may feel how come it is coming in this without doing any code, we are getting the output. So once you get that flow, this diagram, the controller, action, view, controller, action, view. Now let's run this. Save this. Refresh. We can add one more record, but I will say edit Sachin. I'm getting the data. Sendulkar 1, Sachin 1, bcca.com, some number 3. Update user, it will go to the record. Have you seen? Your user with ID 3 has been updated. I want to delete so this Sunil record. Delete. Are you sure? Confirm. Okay. Record is deleted. And if you go to the corresponding template, you can change all the things. If you go to the CSS, you can make changes into that CSS. For example, CSS is available. Layout I'll show in the regular class. Layout is there. There itself we can see. Web roots, CSS, cake.generic, edit plus, anchor tag, text decoration, color. I'll just give it as font hyphen size. Just to say some example. 34 pixel is a very big size. I don't know whether it is coming or not. Let's see. Have you seen? We made some changes in the CSS. That corresponding changes are coming. Have you seen? We made changes in this. So it is sure that it is from the CSS only. Whatever changes you want to do, you can do it there. Template, you can design all the things. Now it is coming in a normal manner. So this is how we designed a simple application using this one, CakePHP. So CakePHP is a free, open source, MVC based PHP framework used for developing well-architectured web application. So this is what from my side, some introduction. We have not studied much. Very important thing you understand what is MVC in a correct manner. What is MVC? You understand in a correct order. What is model and how the flow of these applications are happening. How the flow of application you can have. What is view, the controller, the model, this thing. Once you are clear with this, any MVC framework will be very simple for you. Zen framework or CakePHP or CodeIgniter or Symfony or Doctrine or Y, any framework, this diagram, controller, action, what is going, what is the URL for that, the request will come to the controller, it will understand the action, from there it will go to the corresponding view. This is what from my side. Now as you can see, any query, because if you're having, you can have some quick queries. Yeah, very good. Gaurav is asking, it's easier than .NET. Good to learn. I hope to work with it. It is not hope. It is one best thing. Not only that, any framework compared to any other thing. That's what CakePHP has got a very good demand. That's the reason why we introduced as a new codes with the PHP with the MySQL as a CakePHP for application development. We have seen nothing. We have seen more wonderful things are there in CakePHP like validation. All that things we are going to see. Yet to see 5% of CakePHP we discussed in our webinar. Very simple things that we discussed. Gaurav. Any questions? Any first questions? Anyone has got any questions? Suresh, anyone? Yes, Gaurav? Yeah. If any questions are there, you can give that. So I give one in short span of time, whatever maximum I can deliver, I did that. To my extent, I do not know how you got the things. And these are all the things we'll discuss, Gaurav. We'll discuss about that, how to use store procedure and save it as new table so that you can use it in my application. That all the things in a different, that we need to write our custom code. They will not do any help for us. We need to implement that. So in any real-time project development, we work with the procedures only. Everything is in procedure. We will not pass any query. But in the case of this one, we don't want to pass any query because whenever you are passing a query, every query has to be compiled, executed. So time is more for each thing. So for that procedures we are working on mostly. Gaurav. Anyone else got some idea about this? Some basic idea? Can you have a reply for that? If you are not having any questions, you will have n number of questions. I know you have n number of questions. What I showed, what is coming, what is the flow, all the things. So if you are having some basic knowledge have you got? Is it worth of attending this session? Can you give some response back, please? Or any queries if you're having? Yeah, Nitin says, okay, right. Thanks. Right, thanks. Okay. So if you're not having much queries, the last slide is telling that it is, thank you. So on behalf of Edureka, I extend my heartfelt thanks for your valuable time for listeners. So that's from our side. Thank you. Hope you be in touch with Edureka. So we are providing all the latest courses in a professional manner. All the courses, not only this PHP with MySQL, all things we are providing. So every time we are having 24/7 support. So anyone you attend, if you're having any queries and all the things, Edureka support team are there. Very highly qualified people, working experienced professionals. They will help you at any point of time, whatever queries you are having. So this is from our side, my side. Like to see more videos and try once by self and then join Edureka to learn. So that things you can talk to support Gaurav, right? That things you can talk to Gaurav, only that, right? Thank you very much. So have a good day. So wish you all the best. Thank you for listening, for your patient listening and the time. Thank you. We are winding up. So final thing, right? Good night. Thank you. Right, Gaurav. Thank you. Bye. So everyone, I'm saying a hi on behalf of Edureka and on my personal behalf. Thank you very much for your valuable time. Thank you. Bye. So any queries or anything, you can be in touch with the support, or in the first slide what you have got, you can be in touch with the Edureka team. So we are there to help you out. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Yes, all the things you can ask support Saurav. Right? Thank you. Bye. So you may have to give a feedback or something. If it's anything is there, you can give the feedback. So you can give that time for that also. Thank you very much. Bye. We have got very limited time, so more things to be covered. So I understand that. Right. You can ask all the things to support Gaurav. Okay. Thank you. I'm signing off. Bye.